Hey everybody, welcome back. Craig Peterson here on WGAN and online, of course, at craigpeterson.o. That's Peterson as in S-O-N. Hey, are you panicking about your kids or your grandkids and the use of the smartphones? Do you remember what they were saying about television years ago and how it rots the brains and, we use it as a babysitter? We kind of still do, don't we? And what effect does this have on their brains? Now, we're already starting to see some of the effects of these devices on the younger generations because we've had the iPhone now for over 10 years. We've had the internet now for, it's been about almost 20 years since it's been legal to do business online. No, actually, it's longer than that because it was 91. Wow, okay, 30. So it's been around for quite a while, and we're starting to see some of the results. We're seeing kids that have a little less patience. They won't sit and read like we used to read, right? They won't even sit and watch most movies. Their ideal clip on these online sites where they're watching video is 15 to 30 seconds. And they now have an attention span less than a goldfish, which is 8 seconds. A goldfish's attention span. Now, if you ask me, that's a bad thing. Okay. And now that they're into the workplace, some of these kids, here's what's happening now. They'll sit in a meeting. And whereas baby boomers would sit there and say, okay, let's plan our strategy. What are we going to do? So what are our options? What do we know? Okay, so we're going to do some research. So you look up this, you look up that, you talk to these people, and then let's get together in a couple of days and let's review what we've learned, and then let's make a decision. And you'll try to make a decision in unison. Now, when we're talking about the younger generation, the millennial generation, and of course now we've got Generation Z in the workplace now too, but when we're talking about millennials, they will tend to try and get the answer right away. They'll sit on their phone, they'll obviously try and Google, they will reach out to their friends on social media and ask for their opinion. Now, the friends might not know anything about what it is that you need to have researched or that you're talking about. They may not know hardly anything about the whole topic that you're trying to get researched, but they will reach out to these friends and get their opinions. And their opinions are not necessarily worth anything, right? And then they typically will have decided, hey, listen, we're going to make a decision before we leave today. So whereas it might take the baby boomers a couple of weeks to make a decision, the younger generations, millennials and Zs, will both try and make a decision right away. Now, what's the reason for this? And, pretty much every psychologist and psychiatrist that I've spoken to, in fact, I think every one of them has said, listen, this is 100% because of social media. It's 100% because of their ability to go online. These kids live online, and they always have. So how about younger kids? Let's say you have grandkids or kids that are in their teens or approaching their teens, now even maybe 5 years old. I know some people that are getting smartphones and smart devices for their young kids, 5-year-olds. What's going on? Well, there was research that came out a week ago by 2 psychology professors. And what they did is they looked at the data that was produced in 40 different studies. And this article in the New York Times goes on to say that they looked at the links between social media use and to see if there's any ties with depression and anxiety. And they were looking at teenagers. And we've got the lead person here, lead investigator of this study. Main author is Candace Odgers, a professor at University of California, Irvine. And the paper was published in the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry. and the quotes here from the New York Times, there doesn't seem to be an evidence base that would explain the level of panic and consternation around these issues. And these are big issues, right? This has been a big debate for a long time. As parents, as grandparents, we don't want to harm our children. And we know that staring in the phones has affected us. Look at the relationship between couples and families. Did you see that Robin Williams movie from years ago called RV, where the whole family was sitting around in the same room and they were texting each other? That's kind of the real world. You see people out for meals and they're on their phones, reading articles, texting, whatever it is they're doing. And so there is a significant risk to our mental health from these machines in particular. And Congress has looked at some of the legislation they might pass, and there have been other things too, right? But is it the phone that's the real problem when it comes to these mental issues? And that's what they were looking at, the social media aspects of it. The World Health Organization said last year that infants under a year old should not be exposed to electronic screens, and that children between the ages of 2 and 4 should not have more than an hour of sedentary screen time each day. And we even see this with some of the big execs over in Silicon Valley, where they don't allow their kids to play some of the games or use some of the hardware or software that they're doing. Now, this is a problem from a number of directions still, right? Even though there's no direct correlation between, well, let's call it depression here, and the use of social media by kids, although I certainly have seen studies that would indicate otherwise. But they're saying that in most cases, the phone is just a mirror that reveals the problems a child would have even without the phone. So they're saying that focusing on keeping children away from screens is making it hard to have more productive conversations about topics like how to make phones more useful for low-income people, blah, 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 right? So I guess really what they're saying is that if you compare the effects of your phone to the effects of maybe eating properly or getting enough sleep or playing games outdoors or smoking, the phone is just a very, very minor. So there was a little bit of a correlation, but not a huge one. Mr. Hancock, who is one of the authors here, he's the founder of the Stanford Social Media Lab. He reached similar conclusions. He says he looked at about 226 studies on the well-being of phone users conducted. He said that when you look at all these different kinds of well-being, the net effect size is essentially zero. So there you go. 2011, doctors were worried about something called Facebook depression. But by 2016, as more research came out and they looked at that statement, they actually deleted any mention of Facebook depression and emphasized the conflicting evidence and the potential positive benefits of using social media, because of course there is another side to all of that. So there you go. There's your answer. If you have grandkids or kids and you've been really worrying about your kids using these devices, getting depressed because of social media, it's not a big problem. But here's one thing that I didn't hear addressed in any of these reports, and that is these negative self-images that tend to develop from being on social media. You look at these Instagram posts, you look at the Kylie Jenners of the world, and I think that many girls and many boys are getting the wrong idea about what a woman's body should look like, could look like, and also getting the wrong value about it, right? How much does that matter? Is that your relationship? No, I think they're getting a warped view of things, which is why I mentioned at the beginning this problem that I think we're seeing in business, and I've talked with a number of people about. It is very, very real, no question about it. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little more about privacy and this new secretive company that might end privacy as we know it. In fact, They kind of already have. You're listening to Craig Peterson on WGAN and online, craigpeterson.com.